Do you write in your job? You probably thought it was about communicating. If that's the case, you'd be wrong. It's really about influencing others. I'll share the top 7 mistakes you're probably making right now. If you want to be successful and climb the corporate ladder, you need to go further than just communicating with your writing. And you need to use what you write to influence others and get what you want, so you can succeed at whatever initiative you're doing. Forget what you learned in school about writing. Whether it's English 101 or a business communication course, they rarely focus on how to influence, and maybe even ruin your ability to write to influence. So here are 7 things you are probably doing wrong that might be sabotaging your ability to influence with your writing. First, number 1, you focus too much time on spelling and grammar. Don't get me wrong, spelling and grammar are very important. You can look pretty bad if you screw it up. But it's not what you start with. You start with content, you start with your knowledge, and you start with whatever is going to get your message across and influence your reader. That's where you start. Don't worry about spelling and grammar yet. In fact, if you are a little bit uncertain about your writing, then you should get somebody else to help you with the grammar and the spelling. That way you can focus on content and influence and get somebody else in your organization to help you with those other things that perhaps you're not as good at. And even if you're really good at it, always get somebody to proofread. You're going to miss something no matter what. Number 2, you write based on what you want to write, not what your reader needs to hear. This is especially if you are a subject matter expert. You've got some passion about your writing, what you're writing about, and you might go into more detail and you put more information than is really necessary for the reader. So you need to step back and think, what does a reader need to know? What's going to influence them? What's going to matter to them? And cut out everything else, no matter how passionate you are about it. Number 3, you don't have a strategy to get what you want out of your writing. This means you're writing backwards. Before you even put pen to paper, you really should think about your strategy. What are the things that are going to influence? What are the information that I'm going to put down? How am I going to structure it? And what is really my pitch to get that reaction that I want at the end? Whether it's approval, whether it is agreement, maybe following instructions. Doesn't matter, whatever it is, you need a strategy to get there. So before you start writing, develop your strategy, your purpose, and then you can start putting pen to paper. Number 4, you try to sound too smart with your writing instead of being effective. You don't need fancy language, you don't need long words, you don't need to make it look like the all-American novel. What you really need to do is focus on information in a concise and clear way and get that across. In fact, too much fancy language makes it actually harder to be absorbed by your readers. Number 5, you don't consider the medium when you write. There's different things that you're going to write. You might write a memo, you might write a procedure, maybe an email, a long document, perhaps a business case. All of these things are different mediums and will require a different approach. And you need to consider that whenever you're writing. So number 6, you don't hone in on what will influence your reader. So this might be the hot button, this might be the pain that your reader has, and you need to understand these things before you start writing so that again you can actually address their concerns, not your concern. If you know what they care about, you can write about that, and you can influence them by positioning your document in your writing in a way that makes it more effective. Number 7, your documents make it hard for readers to absorb your message. If you have long paragraphs, long sentences, long words, all of these things make it much harder for the reader. Nobody's got the time and attention these days to spend a lot of time sifting through the information and trying to understand a long paragraph. So you need to refocus your approach and go back to having headings, bullet points, graphics, use tables instead of text, and use some of these techniques that open it up and really are much more hard-hitting with the information. Much easier for somebody to glance at and immediately see what you're trying to get at. So along with everything else, if you make it hard for busy people to read, absorb, and understand, and then agree with your message, you really can't influence them. So follow all these things and make it easy for them, because they're inundated with stuff to read and you need to get their attention so you can influence them.